There's a way of things here.
I'm beginning to see that. We could rule Russia in a different way.
I rule, you serve.
I'm the most loved ruler in all of Russian history. Don't worry about the bodies.
This looks like a definite documentary, an actual film.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood, and most importantly, that looked to be a snippet of, did I see aristocrats doing cocaine in that opening segment?
Almost certainly. That's Hulu's upcoming series, The Great, a comedic retelling of the tale of Catherine the Great, Russia's longest reigning female ruler. That's coming to Hulu May 15.
Right on, but I'll tell you what else is The Great is our fabulous guest, Len Peralta. Thank you so much for joining us, Len.
Ooh, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Ohio's longest reigning Len.
That's right. They're calling me Lockdown Len here. That's what it's known. I'm known as.
The only thing that would have made that better
lockdown
is if we had cut over to you and you were mid cocaine line or something.
It's day 9 of lockdown, and that's we got all the cocaine here in the back. It's great. It's awesome.
That's great. Well, no wonder you're winning the lockdown. Congratulations. All right, folks, we're going to talk about all kinds of things to help you keep watching things no matter what your situation, starting with our primary target. Here's the good news, and there is good news. China, where COVID-19 first appeared, has reopened 507 movie theaters. Now, that's about 4.5% of its so-called exhibition infrastructure. And that was as of Saturday, so there may be more by now. And it only brought in $4,355.
Wow.
But, hey, movie theaters opening, showing movies. Most countries are doing the opposite as the virus hits. Theaters are still open with limitations from what we know in Brazil, Russia, Mexico, Korea, and Japan. But pretty much elsewhere in the major markets, they are closed. So more studios are experimenting with digital releases. We talked a lot about this last week. And as that continues, we're starting to get some pushback. Europe's International Union of Cinemas, even though it's international, it's for Europe, said that even though the theaters can't be open to show live showings, now is not the time to seek short-term financial gains at the expense of the sector as a whole. It doesn't seem like there's that much pushback happening in the United States, at least not publicly, because last week we had Universal putting 4 theatrical releases up for rent for $19.99, whereas now, since then, Sony made Bloodshot, starring Vin Diesel, available for $19.99 for purchase. This had already been in the theaters and made $9.2 million at the box office. Sony Pictures Entertainment Motion Picture Group reassured that Sony is firmly committed to theatrical exhibition and supports windowing. This is just a temporary measure. Disney made Onward, which had been in theaters, available for digital purchase, and will bring it to Disney Plus April 3rd. Paramount will start selling Sonic the Hedgehog on digital early, March 31st. But Paramount also took an unusual step, canceling the theatrical release of The Lovebirds, a comedy starring Issa Rae and Kumail Nanjiani, and giving it to Netflix. So just kind of yanking it from theaters and saying, you know what, we're just not even going to mess with the window. This is going to Netflix. Now, most of these movies, except for that Netflix one, The Lovebirds, were already in theaters. So they had their run cut short by the theaters closing. It's hard to tell whether we'll see movies that are expected to do well in theaters once they reopen show up on digital. Big ones like Mulan, for instance, have already just had their delay happen. No Time to Die, James Bond, also delayed. But just in case there's more of these coming, Amazon launched a section of the Prime Video service called Cinema Hub to collect all these early digital releases in one place. This isn't Prime Video that you get for free. This is the store on Amazon where you can buy movies. And they've got a section called Cinema Hub to say, hey, here's all the stuff that wouldn't normally be available yet on digital, but you can watch it at home. So as that kind of brings us up to date on the state of movies that would have otherwise been in the theaters. Brian, what do you think we are at now?
I am experiencing a strong sensation of having made a devil's bargain. How many years have we wished for the option of day and date releases? And of all the stories you just mentioned, the one, what's the name of the Issa Rae and Kumail Nanjiani one? The Lovebirds. Like, the fact that it was gonna get a theatrical release and now is going to straight to Netflix, like, I like those actors. I'm sure they were very excited about a big theatrical release, and now they are not going to get it, and instead it will go straight to Netflix, which again is not the end of the world. We've seen a lot of really good Netflix originals, but for some reason, when I think of them as human beings who are trying to make it on this crazy ladder of Hollywood, like, that's dealing a blow to their careers. And then all of a sudden I have to question, like, do I really want all movies to be available day and date release? Do I want to take away from the classic Hollywood experience? Because there are human beings and creators on the other side of that. And I'm not saying that anything has definitely changed from my consumer mindset, but I've never had a reason to pause and consider the other side of things until just now.
Well, but what if it worked better for them? What if Lovebirds in a normal situation just tanked at the box office, got stomped on by all the big sequels and blockbusters, and now, because they're going to put it on Netflix, everybody knows about it. Everybody's dying to watch things, and everybody watches Lovebirds and talks about it, and it's like way better for their career.
I would love it if it was true. Len,
I mean,
what do you think?
You seem to be assuming that Netflix is a death sentence.
No. Well, it's a difference when Netflix has a Netflix original, and the story that they're selling from the beginning is, because whether we like it or not, there's no total differentiation between the art and the environment that it comes from. And when, despite all odds, Netflix, the DVD by rental company, suddenly is taking on the Hollywood big boys, and that's a news story, and we're all excited. We can't believe this level of production, and this Hollywood director is doing all those things. That's the story, but that's not the story surrounding this. The story is, we made a beautiful thing. We wanted to have a big Hollywood release. We couldn't do it thanks to a pandemic. It's on Netflix, and I agree. I would love if it would, totally find a new life and be the surprise hit of the season on Netflix. But I don't suspect that's the way people are going to receive it.
No, I agree. I think out of the movies you mentioned, Tom, I think the only one that I feel that maybe I would even consider renting, even though it's coming to Disney Plus, is Onward. I'm thinking that is a big enough movie that I feel that it's going to, I think that's going to do very, very well. The other ones, I'm not really excited to go see them. Now, I was thinking about this last night. Had this pandemic happened last spring, where we were just on the verge of Endgame being released, I think that would have just broken the whole system, right? Because there isn't any way that Disney was going to not release that film in time, and people weren't going to wait for it. So I think had this happened, this whole system would have broken down, and you would start seeing more of this happening as far as day of delivery of movies to streaming services. So I don't know.
We got. I'm going to go ahead and steal a couple of these emails, Brian, because I think they bear on this whole discussion. The idea of saying, I don't really care about paying $20 for a movie that would have been in the theaters, even if I don't have any other choice of watching it. Jeff brought up the idea of piracy. Jeff is a manager of a movie theater that is closed, right? But says he's used to hearing people come in and turn to a spouse and say, well, we already have that at home, even though none of these are available at home.
Yeah, I guess so. It's interesting because there's a lot of different vectors. First of all, there's the Hollywood cachet of having a big studio premiere and having it be a theatrical run, because nobody counts in Hollywood video on demand sales or numbers or any of that stuff. And in fact, the stuff where they are actually aiming for that, famously Netflix has refused to, except for, increasingly more recently, give out any kind of numbers as to how many people were watching stuff. Only recently are they doing that. I don't know. I would imagine it sort of breaks the minds of everyone to cut out the theatrical release entirely. And at least with piracy, you got to sort of play both sides the way HBO did for the longest time, where they refused to. There was no legal way for you to download Game of Thrones, for you to purchase it, or for you to get your hands on it. So they kind of enjoyed the cultural cachet of it being the most pirated content on all of BitTorrent until they finally turned around and started selling it. The piracy thing, it's almost as though the practicality instincts are going to have to usurp the desire for the Hollywood glitz and glamour of an actual theatrical release, where it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, look, man, you want to even make your money back? Then you better make sure that the highest quality, best presentation version of this that people can get their hands on at home happens to be the legal one, either through rental or sales.
Yeah, I tended to hear people say, what about piracy? And point to the fact that piracy exists, but they don't generally show that it has increased or that it has fundamentally undermined the bottom line. There are lots of reasons people stay home from the theater. When people say, yeah, I'm sure you do hear people say, I have that at home already, because there are people that do this, but the stats show that may be an overrepresentation, that most people don't want to go to the trouble of pirating at home, and that more people are really lazy, and piracy requires some work. It requires you to set stuff up and add a server.
And it also requires
those of you who do it, I know, are saying, oh, come on, it's not that easy. Here, I'll show you how to do it in 5 minutes. And you're right. But a lot of people are like, you know what? I don't even want to have it explained. I can go and rent something. Fine, I'll pay for it.
Well, and the biggest thing that turned me off to piracy, and for the record, for anybody who's new to the program, I'm a fully reformed pirate. I think I went a good, teenage through late 20s, maybe even early 30s doing piracy. But then ultimately what turned me off is just the any element of gambling, any element. Once I had family members to start gathering around and I looked like the chump when it was a crappy telesync of something or the Singapore version or whatever, then all of a sudden it's like, you know what, it's the best, highest quality, easiest version, especially now that the on-demand options are so good and so reliable and so easy.
Len?
Yeah, I just think the longer that this pandemic goes on, it's going to be hard to put the genie in the bottle again. Like it's just going to be. I think Hollywood's going to have no choice but to release these movies to digital and VOD. And I personally, I welcome that. I used to watch first run movies on pirate stuff too. I gave up on that just because the quality, it wasn't even worth it. It was too much work. So I will gladly drop down the money to watch a first run movie in my house if I knew the quality was going to be good. So I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this plays out. And like I said, if it goes on any longer, can Hollywood walk back what they've started?
Yeah, we had an anonymous email from somebody who works for a major theater chain who heard within the company that, he says, we tried to make deals with the studios to have release dates stay put, that we tried to get old content or limited releases, potentially even free with no print fee cost to us, just so we could stay open and sell concessions before they were, in places where they're allowed to. Right. I heard the major studios said no and told us ahead of time they would continue to change release dates and even start cutting VOD windows and make current titles available now. This is what started the theater shutdowns in areas outside of LA and states that required them to close outright. We only closed because studios gave us the middle finger, is his theory. The theater chains are a high revenue, low profit industry that has proven to be extremely stable for investors, with the sudden exception of loss of product and low customer interest, let alone sudden required shutdowns. This will certainly harm and even close many theater buildings and even chains.
Can we talk about how surreal it is to see the news item being that China is coming out of a situation that here in the United States we're just now coming into? So the idea of opening up theaters, I mean, that feels a good 6 to 8 weeks away from now. And I suddenly realized we are dealing with biological windowing right now for theatrical releases. This is a case where we biologically speaking, will not be in a position to have any theatrical releases for the next 2 months. And yet, meanwhile, China's only going to be more and more attractive as it becomes safer and more people are willing to gather together to get the big screen experience. I don't really have a strong opinion on it one way or the other, but I never thought I would see. Hold on. Oh, dang it! I'm coming up with the title for the episode, like biological DRM. like that's essentially what's happening.
BRM.
Biological rights management.
BRM. There you go. Biological rights management.
Yeah, because what hopefully happens, and we don't really know. This virus could do all kinds of things in China still. We have no idea. But if everything goes as everyone hopes, theaters fully open there over the next several weeks. And then movies start coming into the theaters. Now, there's a lot of movies that are coming into theaters in China that have already stopped showing in the United States because of windowing, right? So you're not going to see the same movies opening up there, but the studios will start to gain revenue from that. Hopefully Korea follows, and eventually other companies follow, other countries follow. I tend to think, looking at this, that, you know, as negative as people, especially in the movie theater industry, want to feel right now, that the studios don't want to break the window. They don't want this to be the time that they break the window. And that's why we're seeing most of these end up being movies that were in the theaters when they closed. And so they're like, look, we just want to finish the run. So we're with the window got shortened. It's nobody's fault. We'll put them out directly. This is like when that movie with Seth Rogen got banned.
Yeah, The Interview.
Because of The Interview. They're like special circumstances. We thought with The Interview, like, oh, maybe this will open the door. It didn't. I tend to feel now, looking at this stuff, that what they did with the Netflix movie was say, this is a movie that won't survive in the crush of movies that'll eventually be competing for opening dates. It makes sense on the balance sheet to put it to Netflix and get money for it now.
That's interesting, because there is going to be kind of an accordion effect where it's, if everybody delays, you can't delay all the way to, what's relevant right now in early 2020 will not necessarily be relevant in, let's say one of the softer markets of January, February of 2021. So, and you also know it's going to get chewed up in the accordion at the end of the year with all the major big releases. You can't stand up against Bond. Well, and so now back to the devil's bargain, Tom. If you knew for a fact that Universal day and date releases would essentially kill a substantial, let's say 20, 30, 40% of movie theaters, and would you still wish for that? Would you take that monkey paw?
My answer for this changes quite a bit if you ask me on February 26th versus March 23rd. Because on February 26th, I'd be a little more like, well, hopefully theaters can do other things to bring people into the theaters and become event spaces. And this is just a change in society and blah, 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 blah. Right now, the idea of intentionally killing 25% of anybody's business in the current economic climate just seems criminal. So no, I kind of feel like this is not the time to experiment with that in a way that would make things worse. Yeah. What about you, Len?
I just think movie theaters, once again, it depends on how long this goes on. And not only that, not only how long it goes on, but how people feel about being able to go back out again. It may not even be the fact that people don't want to see these films. It's the fact that how people feel about, is it safe for me to go out?
Just a lingering doubt. Yeah.
Right. So this actually could extend a lot farther out. I'm going to be interested to see if it starts to bleed into, because we're only like a month out from the start of tentpole movies.
Well, and we've talked about this, how we can't even have our summer movie draft until we know what summer movies will be coming out. As soon as we get movies, we can have a draft.
Change it, right? Like Black Widow is in that window there, possibly, if this goes on any longer. I think Ghostbusters this summer as well. I'm trying to think of the big movies that were going to be coming out. Hopefully it doesn't go that long, but I think it really isn't up to movie theaters at this point. I think it's up to consumers of whether or not they feel comfortable enough to go back into a movie theater after this is all said and done. And they may not have, movie theaters and studios may not have a choice but to offer this to people who still don't feel 100%.
I mean, you may have a bunch of theaters just don't come back at all. Then people don't even have the chance. Like they just didn't have enough cash to make it through.
Well, and
shut down.
Also, I think Meryl Barr is hinting at the fact that these theaters, there will be a stigma. Like if you push forward at the wrong time, you will look like you're being a bad actor to society in general by encouraging people to cross-pollinate.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And Meryl also pointed out that Black Widow already did get pulled. So,
Oh, wow. So it's not being released.
We're pushing into May and June with these delays. And just to wind this all up, I think what we're seeing is the industry saying we'll put to digital what we have to put to digital because it just won't come out otherwise. And whether that means rental, whether that means sale, whether that means selling it to Netflix, I imagine that the movie from Paramount, like Lovebirds. Why can't I remember Lovebirds? Was probably on the bubble anyway. It was probably something at one point they're like, well, should we sell this to Amazon or Netflix? No, we'll put it in the theater. So it's probably like, well, given the conditions, let's just go ahead and sell it to somebody. I don't think that's precedent setting. I think that's just them adapting to circumstances.
I agree. And actually, coming out the other side of this, I think we're going to see the contrast turned up even more. In a weird way, try this on for size, everybody at home. Consider the fact that movie theaters are professional party throwers. They throw high margin concessions in order to pay the bills, but really that's what pays for the glitz and glamour and the red flowing drapes and the lights and the trailers and the excitement of being there together. And we saw kind of a higher end of that emerge with the Alamo Draft House, and all of a sudden it's a high-end craft beers and pizzas and themed foods and beverages and all that. It may be that out of this, if the movie itself becomes more of a commodity, we may see different versions come out where it's like, hey, it's a day and date release, but in theaters is where you could see the 15-minute extra director's theatrical cut plus this extra stuff or whatever. So it's like, it's all the same, but if you want to get the full experience, if you want to have the party experience, go to where the professional party throwers go and charge you, $12 for a bucket of popcorn.
Yeah.
And I think in that case, I'd be fine with doing that because I understand I'm there for the party, not for the content.
Yeah. A lot of patrons of Cordkillers say the same. They're here for the party, but also for the content, actually, Brian.
Doggone right, man. And some people say, we want you guys to keep on making this content, loud, live, and independent, just as you have for nearly 10 years. And those people head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. Over 1,000 of you beautiful bastards making the impossible possible. Just $1 an episode. That's all we ask. If you got the spare jingle, we sure could use it, especially in these strange and confusing times. But if you are enjoying us being part of your life, why not be a part of ours? Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Let's talk about how to watch. So how we watch things, obviously we were just talking about, has changed because one of the ways we used to watch things was go to a theater. And unless you're in China, you're probably not going to a theater and hanging out with people watching things. So I got 2 stories here. I want to tell both of them first, and then let's talk about if we have any experience with this and how we feel about it. First of all, Movies Anywhere, letting you share your movies with friends. Features called Screen Pass. So you can share up to 3 movies a month from your Movies Anywhere library. And then if you share it with a friend, your friend has a week to accept your offer, 14 days from accepting to start watching the movie, and then 72 hours to finish it once they've started watching it. Usually a rental is only 48 hours to finish, so it's kind of generous. More than 6,000 films and Movies Anywhere are eligible for Screen Pass, so not all of them, but they say about 80%. Screen Pass launched in closed beta. An open beta planned for May and a full launch later this year, so it's not something anybody can get. Something anybody could get is an experiment with a Chrome extension called Netflix Party that lets you and a group of friends who all have Netflix, everybody has to have a Netflix subscription, sync up your video watching together. And it adds a little chat room on the side so you can chat with your friends while you're watching. All users in a party can pause, rewind, or fast forward. So if somebody's like, I got to run to the bathroom, they can pause it. You can take away that the initiator of the party can say, no, only I can pause, fast forward, and rewind. Depends on the group you're in. Polygon points out there are other similar options. There's one called MetaStream for Chrome and Firefox. 2.7, which has a paid tier that gives you access to more services like Hulu or Disney Plus. Watch Together, which supports audio if you want to listen to podcasts with your friends over the internet. And I want to just add that these are browser extensions. Be careful. It's hard to tell who's making these programs sometimes. As you want to be careful when installing extensions, but a lot of people have been using Netflix Party. Nobody has seemed to find anything wrong with it yet. We tried it this weekend myself and watched a movie with my wife's sister and husband who are up, in the Bay Area. We're down here in Los Angeles, and it seemed to work fine. Is this attractive to you, Brian?
Very, very much so. I think that there is a real benefit to the idea of, you ever notice that at an actual party, there tends to be one extrovert who sort of guides everybody through an experience, especially if there's somebody who loves a particular genre where it's like,
he's usually named Brian.
For some reason, as somebody who has often filled that role of essentially being cruise ship director of video journeys, I've talked for years about how I would love if there was some legal, easy way to basically just be a VJ of YouTube clips where it's like you're going to take people on a 3-hour viral clip extravaganza or highlights. Or we're going to take these 30 minutes that are the only 30 minutes you really need to see out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Then I'm going to tell you a story and tie it to why it determined the way this episode of The Witcher turned out in Netflix decades later. I love the idea of living in a remix culture, and anything that makes that more possible is great. This is a bit of a kludge, and if I was to guess that the value they're getting is, my guess is this tracks each individual person and all of their Netflix watching, whether they're in a party or not. And then that, of course, is valuable intel in a world where Netflix is not keen on sharing that. I'm certain that just if I was going to guess what you're giving up, it's the privacy of what kind of stuff you watch and when. But in general, I love the idea of group anything online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it too. I like the idea. I actually wanted to try out Netflix Party. The one thing that was kind of throwing me off was that I didn't want to watch it on my computer, right? And I didn't want to have to
as a security
stream
thing.
No, I didn't want to watch. I didn't want to have to stream it to my television. I don't know. It seemed like too much work. Plus, if it's just chat, let me just be clear. It's type chat, right? It's not voice chat, correct? Or no?
Yes.
So it's type chat. Once again, a lot of work. It would be great to have an app like Netflix Party that maybe could work through like an Apple TV or something that you can run on top, or maybe Netflix can come up with their own or something like that.
I'll tell you what though, Len, let me propose to you, instead of chat, what if it was a simple, 5 different emotes, similar to what we see on a Facebook Live or something like that? Because as somebody who spent 20 years touring live, I'm still looking for some equivalent to laughter and applause, and we don't really have that. I would love it if Netflix could, or a plugin could bake in, like the Watch with Friends is basically getting their reactions at those big moments where none of you guys could believe, like, oh my gosh, that's the killer or whatever.
That's not a bad idea. I like that idea. The other thing my mind goes to is just doing kind of like a MST3K sort of thing, where you're able to talk over it with a certain amount of people, right? Like your friends. So it's not just like any rando coming in and talking over your movie. It's people that you want, and you can make fun of it. And those, maybe it's one of those movies, maybe it's only on movies that people would want to like riff on, right? So like Sharknado or something on Netflix has an option where you can watch party with it and make fun of it or talk over it or something like that. That to me is interesting. And it would, that's what I'm waiting for. I've been investigating a lot of different ways to interact with my kids who are all over the country, right? So trying to find some ways to not only play games, but also watch stuff together. And this was something that I investigated, but having it on a computer, having to stream it was sort of like, it's too much work already. Let's just set something up so we can just watch together and just, I don't have to type anything. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe
well,
I'm just old.
we actually thought about using our phones, but then the audio part of it became problematic because there would be echo in the background. Because the big thing that this does is sync up the video so that you're all seeing the same thing at the same time. And what we ended up doing was we put it on our Mac Mini, which is attached to the TV, and then Eileen logged into the same thing on her laptop so that we could see the chat on her laptop on the couch.
Gotcha.
But we're still seeing the video up there on the big television.
So you had to look at the laptop to see what people were saying.
I mean, I was occasionally able to tell on the television as well because we left chat up there, but it was easier to type back on the laptop.
Gotcha.
So on that Movies Anywhere, sharing with friends and stuff, it reminds me a little bit of, so this is all just for movie rentals, right, Tom?
No, this is for the library you own.
Oh, got it. Okay.
This is, I own, 27 movies that are in my Movies Anywhere library. My friend only owns 3. Let me, share one with him. Let me loan one to him.
So this is closer to like a Plex server type situation where you have your library of purchase content.
It's not even. I hesitate to even call it a Plex server because it's not serving off of your equipment. You don't have to have a computer running or anything like that. It's sort of like a rental in that they get temporary access, but it's not a rental in that you're not renting the things. They're just taking one that's in your library. Also, you can't watch it, I don't think, while it's loaned out. So it's pretending like it's physical objects, even though they're not, which always annoys me.
Which is also similar to, I think both Audible and Kindle do a similar thing. Is that right? You can loan books out and then you get them back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a smart play, and I agree with your distaste for, why when I give it to you, do I have to not have it when digitally it should be either way? But
maybe I'm wrong about that.
I mean, I think that if we want an object to have the same kind of weight as a physical good, then scarcity is built into that. Like if I have it and you don't, and then I give it to you and now I don't have it. I mean, that's kind of the foundation of our entire economy. So I'm not as upset by that digital scarcity.
Well, I understand that it's a foundation of the economy of physical objects, but trying to pretend like these are physical objects is what bugs me. But we're getting caught up on something that isn't even announced. That may not. I may be wrong about that. It may not be the way it works.
Sure, but regardless,
what I'm most interested in.
I was going to say, regardless, I love the idea that essentially this everyone who shares anything. Because I guarantee you're going to have to get a Movies Anywhere account in order to get the other stuff or whatever. This is free advertising, and it's smart for them to do. Make it easy to spread that all of that around.
The one last question I want to get to here, which is I think the question, which is none of these things have ever caught on. People have been trying to do this since Blu-rays came out, when Blu-rays were connected players. Like you can watch your Blu-rays together and sync up, and no one has put it this way, not enough people have wanted to do this to make any of them viable. And so none of them stick around. This is a different time. Is this the time where it finally gets people to try it and they finally like it and it catches on? Or is it Len, the canary in the coal mine, showing that even in a pandemic, when we have to stay indoors, it's just too much trouble?
I think it comes down to the experience, really. If the experience is good, I think people will do it. If it's like me, who was like, well, even listening to you set it up, Tom, was like, enough already. Can't we just turn on something and watch it and maybe talk on the phone or FaceTime them later or something? You know what I mean? Like if the experience is good, then people will do it. And right now, looking at Netflix Party, it was a little bit cumbersome personally for me. Other people may love it. But it all comes down to, is it easy to use? Are people going to enjoy doing it? And was it worth doing afterwards? So.
Yeah, I mean, I had fun doing it. I wasn't dying to do it again.
Right.
Well, but then again, we don't crave that social closeness that adolescents have. We're all increasingly introverted old men who just want to experience stuff on our own terms.
We're dying inside. Don't be afraid to say it. I know.
No, I actually would want to watch a movie with my son and my daughter-in-law. And then who are far away. We're actually looking for ways of doing stuff like that together as a family, and but the experience is like, oh gosh, it's just cumbersome. So I guess it comes down to the experience, and people enjoy it. And like you said, Tom, you didn't even want to do it again. It's like, okay, I did it. All right, fine. It
was fun. It was fun. And if they suggested doing it again, I'd probably do it. But I wasn't going to be the next one to suggest. I wasn't that.
I'm going out. That's not even true. You didn't even. I'm getting busy that night.
That's how much I don't want to do this. I'm actually going outside, risking my life. All right, let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
I like real estate. It's all about location. Under Surveillance.
Monday, March 30th, Conan O'Brien brings his talk show back to TBS. He'll be at home using his iPhone to film himself. His guests will be on Skype. So I was wondering, should we send him a Logitech C920 or something? Or is it
no?
Like
what we should send him is a letter of warning about the dangers of Skype ducking and Skype lag, and an explanation of how you fill dead air and the virtues of handing a conch shell over to different guests one at a time so nobody tries to talk over each other, and how you apologize profusely for constantly saying, "I'm sorry, what was that? Were you about to go again?" Yeah, get ready for some amateur hour late night, people.
What they should just not. Fallon and Conan O'Brien, just take the time off. Play reruns of
You're not digging this, huh?
I am not digging it. I think it's just why? Oh, you ever saw the Imagine video that went viral? It's like, why? Okay, we get it, right? Do people really want to watch celebrities right now? I don't think so. Just take the time off.
That's so wild. Because I love it, because it rips off the veneer that there's anything different between what you're watching right now on Twitch. And in fact, all of a sudden, it's like I heard a firing pistol shot over the horizon, and I walk up and I see a bunch of people learning to walk, trying to race each other. And I look down and I'm in a hot rod, and I'm like, oh, is there a race going on? Should I race in this race?
Now, let me amend my comments. I think the only thing that should continue is SmackDown, because that is super interesting to watch.
Without an audience?
But I love it. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. If you haven't seen SmackDown on Fridays, you got to watch it. It's terrific. That is good. Watching celebrities just talk to one another over a bad connection.
Oh man, every second they spend doing that, it just rips away that veneer. I love it. I'm like,
I get it where you're coming from.
Production values in Hollywood right here on this show. We can legitimately say that now.
That's true. Absolutely.
All right, folks. No one told us viruses would take away the Friends reunion HBO Max counts on today. Looks like it won't get shot in March this year, which is bad news for AT&T because the May launch is getting near. It won't be there for you.
Oh, no, it's terrible.
Yeah, their Friends reunion not getting shot.
That was so good, Tom. I'm gonna do you the service of not even having a comment. That was amazing.
They should shoot it. Just do it in different rooms. Do it on Skype. Come on, you guys.
Skype.
You just got done telling them not to. Right? They listen to you.
I know. Just go on Zoom meetings. It's fine.
Have them all show up, no makeup, just looking like they all got out of bed 30 years later.
I love it. That's the way to do it.
I'm sure it'll still happen, but yeah, I'm wondering about HBO Max has to launch because they're like, wow, the people are going to need this. By May, things might be coming back. Who knows? They're not going to have all the things shot that they would have intended to be shot. I wouldn't be totally shocked if things are coming back if HBO Max delays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I HBO Max. Oh, what a launch. What a time to launch. What a brand to launch under. What a stockholder nightmare.
Oh boy.
Sling TV is making more of its content available to stream for free. You don't even need a credit card or account. You just log on to the website or the app. That includes ABC News Live, a bunch of movies, a lot of kids content, some entertainment stuff, home and garden, food kind of things. This is an expansion of an existing free tier They used to have about 100 hours, so it wasn't really extensive. Now they've got 3,000 hours of free content. Sling also making some channels free for their subscribers. FX, CNBC, Hallmark, Game Show Network, all in free preview going through April or in some cases into May. And Hulu added free live TV news to its on-demand service on Friday. So even if you don't have Hulu Live, you can watch some TV news for free on Hulu.
Pretty good time to be giving out free trials to try out what an over-the-top streaming service looks like.
If you're still a cable subscriber, and you're welcome here if you are, we understand. NBC and Fox are making their news channels available to all cable subscribers, even if the particular channel isn't on the package. So if you subscribe to like a super basic package that doesn't have Fox News or MSNBC, you will now get it. The channels can be accessed either through the cable service itself or on the network's apps if you just log in and authenticate through your cable provider.
I think that's fine. It in no way reduces my perception of the quality of news programming that they're doing. There is certain entertainment that when you make it too free, it feels less valuable. News is not among those, in my opinion.
Amazon is making some of its Prime Video kids programming available to stream without a subscription. The kids will stream.
Too close on the nose.
I know, right? Amazon's original content is available worldwide. So anywhere Prime Video is, you can get the kids programming that Amazon makes for free. And then they've licensed content available too. That varies by region depending on the deal they have. And Amazon says it's working to expand that as well.
That's another smart one where it's like, even if the kids programming is garbage, if it keeps the kids quiet, if the kids seem bored and now they get some new things to watch while you're trying to work from home, smart move.
Yeah.
And Apple TV Plus launched the first 2 episodes of Oprah Talks COVID-19 for free viewing. In the first episode, she talks to Idris Elba and his wife, who have tested positive for the virus. And in the second episode, she talks to a frequent guest of hers on multiple versions of her shows over the years, Reverend Wintley Phillips. Oprah talks from her home, and her guests participate using Apple's FaceTime.
Man, that is branding synergy for Apple, but is it? I'd be so curious. I guess I need to take a look at it and see.
From what I could see, just from looking at the trailer video, she is in a very well-lit situation in her home. And the FaceTime video looks a little more like FaceTime, but even that shows up well on these. So
yeah, I saw that come up on Apple TV last night, and I was like, really, do we need that content right now? I mean, do we need to see Oprah talking to Idris Elba? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, look, the world has spoken, and yes, we do want to see anything with Idris Elba and anything with Oprah. And if they're both in there, then we're willing to accept a weird-ass wide-view camera and people hunched over staring into it. Like on this, it's so bizarre to me to look at just the production aspects of it. Like, we on this show have specifically bought cameras with lenses with short throw distances, and so that we get a shallow depth of field and we look like we're on a television, whereas everybody's using these little wide angle lenses on their phones and stuff. And go back, even Oprah's all hunched over. She looks like she's trying to do needlepoint or whatever. It's crazy to me that anybody is allowing this to look this way.
It's it's interesting. It's an interesting time. I would rather see an hour of Madonna in her bathtub singing about fried fish than Oprah interviewing Idris Elba, but I guess I'm not the demo. So that's
a couple more notes. Nick Jr.'s learning subscription video service for preschools is available on the Apple TV app now in 25 territories. That means that you can subscribe to it through Apple. It'll be in the app. You can download, do all of that. Same as like CBS All Access, Starz, HBO, etc. And Netflix has 2 more interactive shows coming to the service. You vs. Wild comes April 10th, starring survival expert Bear Grylls. So these are interactive the way Bandersnatch was. And an animated show called Battle Kitty was announced. It does not have a premiere date yet.
Cool.
All right, let's talk about what we've had our eyes on, something you've watched recently that you enjoyed. And I know you kind of spoiled yourself on one of these, Len.
Right.
What have you had your eyes on?
Yes, I did mention that I was watching SmackDown I really enjoyed it, and I'm not a wrestling fan, but what I love about it is the honesty of it. You really have to go all in without the audience, and it's just fascinating to watch to me. It's pretty amazing, and if you haven't seen it yet, it's pretty interesting how they do the live segments. No, they are not social distancing at all. They are still throwing each other around like they would normally, but there was no audience, and that's what's great. This past week, Rob Gronkowski was on it because they announced he was going to be hosting WrestleMania, and seeing Gronk go all in was pretty fantastic. The other thing that I wanted to see, actually Nora ended up watching all of it. I saw one episode, is this heavily produced documentary called Tiger King, which is on Netflix, which is bonkers. If you haven't seen anything about it, just watch it cold. You will be amazed. I saw one episode, kind of came in the middle of it, and I'm like, this is nuts. Nora just ended up binging it all this weekend, so I'm kind of behind on it. But it is absolutely bonkers.
Is it actively better to go in not knowing anything about it? Because I had a description of it given to me on the After Things podcast earlier today, and it sounds fascinating. Here, in fact, skip what I'm about to say secondhand, but it's about trainers and handlers and breeders of exotic animals, and the bonkers world that they live in, where it's like the most rational human being you see in the first 3 episodes is a dude convicted of like massive drug sales.
Yes, but I'm telling you that the reason why Nora started watching it, because she thought it was going to be about, these crazy exotic animal breeders. It is so much more than that. It goes so much deeper, takes so many turns. And she didn't spoil anything for me, but the stuff that I watched, I was like, is this even about exotic animals anymore? That's where this documentary goes. It's fantastic. Probably the stuff I've seen of it has been really enjoyable and just absolutely bonkers. So,
Question,
yes.
Is it one that I should share with the missus, or is this a solo adventure I should go on?
I don't know. Does Bonnie like total weirdness and shocking stuff?
Yes, she can. She will never say yes, but she, if it's poignant enough, can be tricked into watching it and then becomes emotionally invested. But it sounds to me like this might be a little bit too wacky.
It's really crazy.
Because it's a documentary.
Yes, it's a great ride. I would not recommend it for children, however. But if you guys want something that's just absolutely, you think this world is crazy, you're like, what was going on here with these people? It's just one person after another, and they get weirder and weirder and weirder. It's chef's kiss. It's great.
Brian, what about you?
Man, I finally got the kids watching Battlestar Galactica, and danged if both my 16-year-old and my 12-year-old aren't all the way into it. I went back, and of course, this is like my third lap on some of these, watching the original miniseries, and I still hold up that Battlestar Galactica Season 1 is one of the best first seasons of anything, science fiction or otherwise. Let's not talk about anything after that first season until we get there, but it's great to go back and revisit it. Not all of the effects hold up, but they don't have to, because the storytelling is so good.
I have not had a lot of extra time to watch anything that isn't just part of the regular watching we do for Spoilerin time and such. But one thing I want to note is I'm going to be on Andrew Heaton's Alien Nation sci-fi podcast.
Oh, no. Alienating the audience. Alienating the audience. Yeah.
It's an alienation of the audience is where my head was at. Alienating the audience, talking about Deep Space Nine. Which has been my comfort watch for years. And I did watch an episode of that this week where it's just soothing just to have it on. But also we watched Kingdom, a Korean show that came to Netflix, which is the second season of a zombie apocalypse show where in Chosun era Korea, so it's kind of a medieval setting, someone tries to figure out how to prolong life, and instead creates a zombie infection that sweeps over the nation.
Which is technically a form of prolonging life.
It works, technically. And so, at the beginning of season 1, the deal was that the emperor hadn't been seen for a while, but you could hear him shambling around in there, so we knew he was alive. And of course, you can guess where that might go. But the son of the emperor, the crown prince, is out there trying to fight the infection. And in season 2, he comes against some opposition. They try to subvert his throne, and so they start doing this sort of medieval Game of Thrones plot while the zombie apocalypse is going on. It's fantastic. It's only I think it's 6 or 7 episodes per season. So it's a quick watch and great effects, great story. It's called Kingdom, and it's available on Netflix.
Nice.
Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, I got an on the lookout pick for today. It's a new Netflix sci-fi thriller called Omniscient. This takes place in a futuristic city where all of the citizens are followed by these fly-sized drones that monitor them 24/7. And for, quote, safety and privacy, the drones only report to a supercomputer. So humans can't look at the images. Only the computer looks at it and passes judgment and stuff. The system is then tested when Nina Peixoto, who is a programmer for the company that runs the drones, finds her father has been brutally murdered in their home. And he had a drone just like everyone else did. So how does someone get murdered in a city where there's no, crime? Nina makes it her mission to find this out. This was created by Pedro Aguila, who also created Netflix's 3%, another really good sci-fi thriller that we talked about on the show a long time back. There are 9 episodes of Omniscient streaming now on Netflix. Anybody Omniscient sound interesting?
It certainly does. Is this in Portuguese the way 3% was?
It is. The English dub, I will say the English dub is pretty good. I watched it only with the English dub, and I think it was just fine. I think it was great.
That sounds good. I like that.
If you have something we should be on the lookout for, email cordkillers@gmail.com.
Hey, folks, if you're hearing this on March 24th, you can buy my book, Trigger. It's a novel about a time traveler and his time ship who really just want to deal with the fallout of having saved the universe once and then get kind of tricked into having to try to save it again. So if you like a time travel adventure, you check it out. It's called Trigger, Trigor, at tomsnewbook.com. But Brian, there's another way people can help out Cord Killers as well.
Heck yeah, man. We have a deep, deep debt, not just a debt of gratitude. I mean an actual debt to our friends over at Doghouse Systems, because when we created this studio, they showed up with a whole bunch of systems. That's what's been powering this show. You can help us pay off our debt. Look, a lot of you guys are thinking about upgrading your system right now. You realize you're going to spend a lot more time at home. Go ahead and get parts that you rely on that from people that you trust, that we trust, right out of Texas, up in the Dallas area. Our friends over at Doghouse Systems. Just go to doghousesystems.com/v/rogue. Use promo code ROGUE, that's ROGUE at checkout, and you'll get a free SSD drive and help us with our debt.
Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines!
We've talked about Locast before, the nonprofit streaming service that gives access to local channels in many areas of the U.S., not all, but many. Every so often, if you've watched Locast, it interrupts to tell you it's a nonprofit and it relies on contributions as a way of trying to say, like, hey, if you donate to us, we'll take away the NAG ad. However, in an email to users, Locast said, if you cannot afford the $5 a month contribution right now, email admin@locast.org and they will provide you with 30 days of interruption-free service.
I've been seeing this in other places as well. Sam Harris recently took his entire podcast behind a paywall. He gives the first half for free, but he mentions that he never wants money to be the thing that stops you from enjoying his programming. So if you just write, he said, just explain to us why you can't afford it, and we accept 100% of the requests for a free subscription, which I think is a fine, smart thing to do, because weirdly, if you care enough to write that email, that is more valuable than the $5 a month that you might just be able to throw. Fox announced that it will buy streaming service Tubi by using cash from the sale of its minority stake in Roku. Tubi is a catalog of more than 56,000 hours of ILM and TV streaming for free with ads. Fox says it will run Tubi independent, but consider leveraging its own, quote, expertise in natural and local news sports programming. It said ILM, which for a second I thought, what is Industrial Light Magic? And then suddenly it updated to say film. Good old ILM.
Also,
they're the film of ILMs.
National and local news and sports programming, not natural. Although I'm sure it's very natural.
Oh man,
maybe not all natural. But yeah, Tubi. I kind of feel like people underestimate Tubi. It's got a really good selection, and maybe a very large ad load when it takes a break, but it doesn't take that many breaks. I've watched a couple of movies on Tubi. Usually with the TV episodes too, it just does a couple pre-rolls and then it doesn't interrupt you again. Has been my experience anyway. Interesting move for Fox. This is the Rump Fox, right? This is the one that still owns FS1, FS2, Fox News Channel. This is not the stuff that Disney bought. To say like, oh, we're gonna start injecting our national and local news and sports into a service that gives you free TV and movies. I think this is the beginning of something that I will be curious how it turns out.
Fun fact: the Rump Fox was Len's college nickname.
It was. That's my wrestling name. It was.
Yeah. Amazon's Prime Video now supports the creation of up to 6 user profiles so that individuals watching on the same account can track viewing progress, manage watch lists, and get personalized recommendations of their own without polluting the same for other people in their households. The option seems to be available first in select countries in Asia and Africa.
Yeah, this makes sense. And I think it's interesting how you sort of approach this from two different directions. You have, the Netflix, of course, created profiles for Netflix, and then we're seeing the same thing on Amazon. Whereas you see the reverse when it comes to YouTube television, where it's like, okay, we know there are 5 different accounts, but you could put them all on the YouTube television service. So it's what direction do you prefer? That everyone have an account and then they go under different umbrellas, or that you have an account and you break them into profiles?
Yeah, I know that my wife has a very strong opinion about, she doesn't want what I watch to pollute the recommendations she gets. So she will be the first to jump on this as soon as it's available. But right now, our Prime Video accounts are mixed. So I'm in there giving, I don't know what I do to her.
Separate issue.
But they're not pure. They're just, it's the principle of the thing.
I found out at one point that you could fuse Audible accounts, and Bonnie and I have both been enjoying Audible for like 5 or 6 years or whatever. And there was this weird moment where I'm like, hey, Bonnie, I know there's a few books that I've listened to on your account. We could finally join our audiobook libraries together. And she goes, please don't. Please don't. And it took me a moment to realize that she was going through a romance novel phase and didn't want the library all mixed.
It happens. It's all good.
CNET profiled an app called Watchworthy that lets you rate shows by swiping right or left within 60 seconds of that. Watchworthy gives you a personalized recommendation of what to watch across 200 streaming services. Watchworthy is owned by Rampker, a site that surveys individuals about entertainment habits. So Watchworthy will collect your preferences and sell them to advertisers in an anonymized, aggregated way. This reminds me a little bit of some of the fashion brands. What they'll do is they won't ask you what fashion brands you like to wear. They'll say, which of these brands would you never be caught dead wearing? And from that, they're able to extrapolate the type of clothing that you tend to like. And I found those recommendations to be pretty good. So I'll bet this works pretty well.
Yeah, they've done, Ranker has done a lot of research on this. And so they have a big data set to train their machine learning on, which means they don't need that much from you to be able to start to get an accurate view of like, oh, people who like Better Call Saul, probably going to like Outsider, probably going to, this or that. So it's a complicated version of that because they can look at lots of what you say you like and don't like. I tend to, I'm looking forward to the day where it doesn't even ask me. It doesn't trust me to be honest about what I like and don't like, because I think sometimes we say we like stuff we don't, or we say we don't like stuff that we secretly do, even to ourselves.
Yep.
And I think going on some kind of what you actually end up watching, and maybe even like facial expressions while you're watching it or something like that could be interesting.
Yeah. Also, it's not called Rabker, huh? It's called Ranker.
No, sorry. I don't know why all the misspellings in our copy are only in your reads, Brian. Disney Plus will still launch in most of the EU March 24th, but they are committed to reducing bandwidth utilization from the service by 25%. Netflix, Facebook, YouTube, a lot of companies are doing the same thing in Europe at the request of the European Union. Disney announced the launch in France, however, will be delayed until April 7th. And the company also indefinitely suspended the launch of the service in India, which was originally scheduled for March 29th, along with a big cricket tournament that was going to be on Hotstar, which Disney Plus is tied into in India. And without that cricket tournament to launch the marketing, I guess they decided, you know what, we just won't launch it there yet.
That's really interesting, because you would think that absent that aspect of the puzzle, that right now would in general be a good time, because I assume that India will, of course, probably have to deal with the global pandemic and tell people to stay home and watch TV or what have you.
They are. Yeah, they absolutely are. Yeah.
Fubo TV, the sports-centric live TV streaming service, is merging with FaceBank, which is neither Facebook nor SoftBank. FaceBank is best known as the company that makes the hyper-realistic digital people like the virtual Tupac or the virtual Michael Jackson that performed quote-unquote live at stuff like the Billboard Music Awards. It also has the rights to digitally represent Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe. The pan of the combined company.
What is that? The plan.
The plan of the combined company is to create a content
The bread is going to be whole grain with Fubo TV.
a content delivery They're going to make a content delivery platform for both traditional and future form IP. By the way, San Diego, go F yourself.
This is even weirder than Tubi. Fubo TV, which is like Brian said accurately when I spelled it right, is a sports-centric live TV streaming service, but they want to now, they're merged with a company that makes virtual Tupac. And they've said, yeah, we want to figure out how to deliver all of our virtual celebrities over the internet to people. I have no idea what this is going to end up looking like. Well,
and it makes me wonder, because pretty soon these celebrities who are aging are going to have baked into their contracts eternal likeness rights, because those will be valuable and have money. And then we're going to have future arguments where, this is a dumb example, but there was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon called Jabberjaw that was just a straight up ripoff of Rodney Dangerfield, and it was voiced by a different person, and it had a different, I think it was No Regard instead of No Respect or whatever. It was a copyright-free version or whatever. But we're going to see a future where two dead celebrities will happen to be too similar to each other, and then we're going to have future lawyers arguing about which eternal rights likeness contract a piece of art falls under.
I mean, that's true. But even before that, FaceBank has the right to have a virtual Elvis. Is he going to have a concert streaming on Fubo? Or are they going to start branching out into virtual sports figures that will then play each other in virtual sports games? I just don't know where this is going.
Oh my God, you could have sports games of celebrities taking on other celebrities, or some kind of fantasy sports league.
Will there be a virtual Oprah interviewing a virtual Idris Elba?
I just want to see Elvis coast to coast in the spirit of Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
I mean, they could do that, right? I'm like this. I would never saw this one coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. The virtual Tupac and Michael Jackson coming to Fubo TV soon.
By the way, Swamp Rat said it's not Rodney Dangerfield. It's Curly from the Three Stooges. That's Jabberjaw.
Whatever. Says you. My lawyers say otherwise.
I think we need to move on, because we can neither confirm nor deny that any of these allegations are true. But we can confirm that we have dispatches from the front. I used up most of our email in the primary target. I apologize for that. I don't know why I'm apologizing. It's just we got great emails. Thank you. From Carabas, who said, when we're talking about changing spoilering time and whether people would like it or not like it, we've been talking a lot about that in After Talk, which you get as a patron. Carabas said, you're hearing from a tiny percentage of your listeners, and I expect that most of us are just fine with the way things work now. We actually acknowledged that and said, yeah, all the people who are currently listeners are probably fine. That's why they're currently listeners. But yes, you're right. We're hearing from a small percentage of our audience. He says, that said, I like the idea of splitting Spoilerin time into individual mini episodes. If people have their podcatcher set to only keep 3 episodes, they can surely change that, or simply pick episodes out of the history. I don't like the idea of moving some shows to a non-spoiler After Talk. And then Ken said, I wanted to give a thumbs up on splitting out within the single feed the various shows that are being talked about. That would make things even easier. I'd just delete or move down the playlist anything I didn't want to listen to yet. So it sounds like Kevin is bearing out what Carabas said most people would do.
Yeah, and I think there was a time that it was a big deal that nowadays those downloads all seem virtually instantaneous, or they happen, first thing in the morning over Wi-Fi, and so it's easy enough to just scoop it out of your feed. So I think we have a solution for that, so we'll move forward on that.
And as far as not liking the idea of moving shows to a non-spoiler after talk, we're only doing that where it's a question of we will not talk about this at all, or we could talk about it in after talk. It will not be, we would talk about this in spoiler in time, but hey, we have after talk. It's not, it's a different way of approaching it.
And also we were talking about movie theaters on our primary target. Jimmy writes in, he's part of the VOD squad. Hi, Brian and Tom. I was just watching the latest episode of Cordkillers where you were talking about the survival of movie theaters with no one going to the movies over the last couple of weeks. What about this thought? Do you think we'll see a comeback of the drive-in movie theater? I'm old enough where I can remember that drive-ins match the number of walk-in theaters. Perhaps the cost of real estate would prevent a big comeback of drive-ins, but nice to think about as he has fond memories of drive-ins during childhood and teenage years. Yeah, dude, I remember watching Empire Strikes Back at a drive-in movie theater. I think we'll see it just as a fad. I think it'll be a fun thing until it is safe to, again, get the triple premium experience in movie theaters.
I'm trying to find the story about this because there were a lot of stories about 4 or 5 days ago that, drive-in movie theaters staying open. They're being allowed to stay open. But it was earlier this week, I swear I saw a story saying that drive-in theaters even were now not allowed to stay open.
Yeah, I saw that same story too, that they had seen an influx of business and now no more. So
that's crazy.
It wasn't, I saw that it wasn't the influx of business. It was that they were required to.
Yeah, exactly.
To shut down by the restrictions.
But in the meantime, they had gotten a lot of people to see the movies at the drive-ins.
Yeah. So I don't think you're going to see a drive-in surge if they're not allowed to be open. That's what I'm saying. Len Peralta, thank you so much for joining us. You've got so much going on that people could take advantage of right now. If they've got nothing to do, hire Len to draw something for you, something you could send around to your family. A great way to stay in touch.
That's absolutely true. You can go to lenperaltastore.com. You can see all stuff that I've done on my own, but also for Daily Tech News Show, which I'm on Fridays. And also you can support me through patreon.com/Len. And if you're you're a DTNS fan, you'll get all the stuff that I draw on Friday for Tom's show. And it's a good investment. Trust me.
Commission Len, lenperaltastore.com. Thanks. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack. Also carried on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. See you again next time.
Hey, Tom Merritt.
Yes, Brian Brushwood.
Know who I love even more than my own children?
Your other children?
No, not my wife. I know what you're saying. I love our $5 patrons. These are the people that keep us loud, live, and independent. Thank you so much, $5 patrons.
You know what? I love them more than not life itself, because then I'd be dead and I couldn't appreciate them, but really, really, really close. And I'm so thankful that they are here to make this show happen.
Thank you so much to all of our $5 a month patrons. You guys are wizards. You're champions.
Thank you, everyone.
You're heroes.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.